Today's episode features a very special guest, Deepak Marwah, a CITE SBL alum and newly appointed principal of Laguardia High School. This episode is pretty special since Principal Marwah actually attended Laguardia High School as a student. Listen as we discuss what it's like going from student to administrator of your former high school. We also get into what it's like transitioning from teacher to administrator, tips for educators looking to get into admin, and so much more. Learn more about our administration program at www.alfredapply.com. Alrighty, Principal Marwa, we can just start off with you saying your name, introducing yourself, and letting us know how you really got into administration in the site program.
Sure. So my name is Deepak Marwah, and I am the newly appointed principal of LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts in New York City. I am a proud graduate of the CITE program, cohort 28, which feels like it was a million years ago. I don't remember how I found out about CITE, but what really brought me to CITE was the fact that it was a program that had diverse offerings in terms of the classes that we took, and also it was super convenient. I was a part of the Brooklyn cohort at St. Francis College at the time, and what I liked was that I was able to continue to do those courses while I was still teaching full-time, in addition to other things that I was doing at the time, like singing, performing, etc.
I love that. And so, what did you go to LaGuardia for, being that you're an alum?
So I'm actually coming back to LaGuardia for the third time. I was a vocal student at LaGuardia. I'm a singer. Then I came back years later after my undergrad and graduate studies as a teacher. I taught there for a number of years. While I was a teacher at LaGuardia High School is when I was doing my leadership work with CITE. And now I'm back years later as the principal.
Wow, that is such an amazing story. Now, what is this affinity that you have with LaGuardia? Do you live close by? Do you just love the school? What keeps bringing you back?
Well, it certainly wasn't because it's close to me. I grew up in Eastern Queens. So as a high school student, I had to take 3 trains and a bus to get to and from LaGuardia High School. And, it truly is one of the, if not the best educational institution in New York City. I can say that because I'm the principal. I'm certainly biased, especially coming back here for a third time. LaGuardia is magic. It's an amazing place. You come in here and you have students that are passionate to learn, to share, and to become artists. There's students that certainly come in here not knowing what they're getting themselves into and then leave here completely transformed. That's what happened to me. I did not know anything about music on the level that I know now, but I came here to LaGuardia and I learned about classical music and opera, and I ended up studying classical music. My master's degree is in classical voice. And it's really all because of the work that I did here at LaGuardia. It completely transformed me. And I want to be the person that kind of helps other students have that same type of experience. It's also an interesting place because you come here and students respect one another because they understand that no matter where you're from, no matter what you do, or no matter how much money you have or not, that you come here with a talent. So there's a level of respect that students have for one another. And to me, that's truly beautiful. And I just love being a part of it.
I have to agree with you. I do know that it really is truly a beautiful thing. And what would you say, or how was it like transitioning from being a teacher to being an administrator? And I know that a lot of teachers, do consider going into administration. What would you say to them?
Well, I was lucky enough to train under one of the assistant principals here, the chairperson of the music department. And after I spent a year or two after the internship and working with her, I realized that it was something that I wanted to do. I saw the power in leadership and I wanted to be impactful in that way. So I left LaGuardia High School as a teacher to become the director of arts programs for the Baldwin School District in Long Island. From Baldwin, then I was fortunate enough to spend 5 years as a director of fine arts for the Byram Hill School District in Armonk, New York. And most recently, I'm the director of performing and visual arts for the City School District of New Rochelle, where I have overseen arts education for students from pre-K through 12 for about 11,000 students in 11 different buildings. So, I really feel that the training that I got at CITE prepared me for that. It truly helped me to see what leadership meant. And I've been fortunate to really be able to practice leadership and to learn more about it. in all of these school districts, culminating in now being the principal of LaGuardia High School, where I plan on staying until the end of my career.
This is actually the second time that I had the unique experience of interviewing one of our students that actually is now an administrator at a school that they went to. I want to know what that is like. How is it like being, that you've walked through those halls before? What is it like walking through them again, but wearing a different hat and being in a different role? And of course, did you always dream of doing this? Did you plan on being an administrator at the school you went to?
No, I had no plan on this happening. My master's degree is in performance. I thought that I would be singing, but I've always loved education just as much as I love performing. So, at the end of the day, there are more opportunities in education. And if you love two things equally, you go for the one that's going to pay you more. Right. So I ended up here at LaGuardia High School now as the principal, and I have not had a chance to really engage with students yet because they don't come back for another week or two. I'm walking empty hallways, but it is a very surreal experience. I'm going into classrooms that I remember being very, very big. And now as principal, I walk in and I'm like, this seems a lot smaller than I remember. I feel really, I don't know how to put it, the level of responsibility I feel on my shoulders right now to ensure that this institution remains one of the top schools in New York City, it weighs on me. And I want to continue to feel that responsibility so that I work as hard as I possibly can. And that's how I felt here as a teacher, because as a teacher, I worked extremely hard to support my students, some of which are on Broadway and singing on international stages, some of which have chosen not to go into music, but still have a deep love and passion for music. And I felt that way also here as a student. I felt like I wanted to work hard. So whether it's as a student, as a teacher, or now as the school leader, I've always felt that this place has inspired me to do really hard work for the arts and for the community.
Absolutely. And what advice would you give to, let's say there's a teacher that wants to go into administration? What is something that you would tell a teacher that is a little bit apprehensive or just entertaining the idea of going into administration?
I think a lot of people see administration as leaving students behind, and that was difficult for me to do because I loved being in the classroom. But the longer you are in administration, you realize that you have the chance to really support more students than you ever would if you were still in the classroom. So when I was in the classroom, I might have taught anywhere between 100 to 300 students a year. But now as an administrator, the work that I do supports in this particular building over 2,000 students. When I was the director of arts in New Rochelle, over 10,000 students a year. So while the job is completely different, being in the classroom and being a school leader or a district-wide administrator, the fact of the matter is, if your heart is really settled on helping students, you will be successful in this role.
And what is some advice or two things that you would let somebody know that's about to embark on the site program journey? Maybe it's the coursework or it's time management, but what's two things that you think somebody should know before joining the program?
Two things, huh? It's a good question. I'm trying to think of what I would have liked to have known. I think the advice that I might give somebody first is to be organized, because embarking on learning leadership in addition to being in the classroom is not an easy thing to juggle. So that would be the first thing I would say. And then the second thing I would say is for them to really try to make connections between what they learn in leadership classes and what they're practicing in the classroom. Because I did say that the two things are very are very different, but also at the same time, being a leader of a school is just like being the leader of a classroom. So to make those parallels and to realize that when you get into administration, it's just the same amount of practice, it's just to more students. And instead of the students being instead of you teaching students, you end up teaching adults who then teach students. So it's really, for me, all about the servant leadership model, where I feel like that I'm supporting the leadership team of the school, and then they're supporting the teachers, and then the teachers are now supporting the students. For me, I always go in with that servant leader mindset, and that served me well.
And what are some unexpected things that you feel like administrators should know, or people that want to get into administration should know before getting into this field? Or is there anything that you feel like you have ran into as an administrator right now that you didn't know that you were going to run into, or you didn't foresee, whether it's dealing with different parents or the students in the hallway, or what's something that has come up, or that you feel like people should know before getting into this field?
Nothing was really unexpected, but it really took me a while for some of the theoretical things that I learned in class to really take shape in my mind. Or as you practice and as you start to realize what it means to be a leader, you realize that communication is key. And for me, that's it, because in the classroom, you say one thing to 30 students and they get it. But when you're a leader, you have to make sure that you're communicating not just with your team, you're communicating with the people that help you run this team or run the building, you're communicating with the parents, you're communicating with students. And that if you are not very careful about how you communicate, how often you communicate, and the quality of your communication, that you could end up making more work for yourself. So for me, communication is key, learning how to be a direct and clear communicator and learning how to ensure that you are communicating as frequently as possible.
Absolutely. And this is going to be the second to last question that I do ask. And let's say that there is an active administrator right now, but this administrator wants to find maybe new ways or reinforce some ways that the DOE already laid out for them to engage like their school community. What are some good tips or advice that you would, give an administrator that wants to, engage their community in a different way, maybe?
I think the best way to engage your community is to go out there and to meet your community, is when you have opportunities to actually shake hands, meet parents, talk to students, support students in outside opportunities, then that's the way to do it. For me, that was a built-in component of the job that I do, because my students in the arts perform. So I was always able to meet parents at concerts, at art gallery exhibitions, at dance shows, at theater shows, and really get to know what the parents are proud of, getting to know what the students need, honoring the voice of your community, and also listening to the voice of students and implementing what they think needs to happen in their education into the curricular choices that you make.
Absolutely. I love that answer. And this is for my final question. I want to ask, what is one or two, if you have two or even three, what are one, two, or three qualities that you think a successful leader needs to have, especially as it pertains to school administration?
I certainly think that the best leaders that I've ever worked with, and a way that I like to ensure that I move forward, is by always listening. But I want to make sure that I'm always listening to learn, so that I'm not just listening so that I can get through. So listening is a very big one. Having patience, because things will not happen as quickly as they do when you're on the ground level with the students. In leadership, it takes a long time for the work that you do to actually start to show that it's growing.
Thank you, Deepak, for an amazing episode. And for more information on our administration program, please visit www.stroseapply.com or email diane@citeprograms.com. And to keep up with everything CITE, please follow us on all social media platforms at CITE Programs. That's CITEPROGRAMS. Till next time.